Naomi's hands trembled as she stared at the crimson and black screen. Tuition payment denied. She sat in the university library, her laptop open, eyes wide, heart pounding. This wasn't just some error. It was the third time this message had popped up that week. Her payment deadline was tomorrow, and without it, her final semester, her graduation, would vanish. Just like that. Her phone buzzed. She snatched it up, hopeful. Mom. Sweetie, talk to your father. It's not my decision. Anymore. Naomi clenched her jaw. She didn't want to call him. She hadn't since Christmas, when he and her stepmother announced they were investing the family funds into a new beach house project with her half-brother, Kyle, his golden boy. The same Kyle who failed out of college twice and now wanted to build a wellness brand. She didn't understand how this affected her, though. Her college fund, meticulously saved by her late grandfather, was supposed to be locked in a trust. It was her money. She called. Her father answered on the fourth ring. "Hey, Naomi," he said, all breezy and impersonal. "What's up?" "My tuition," she snapped. "Why isn't it paid? The fund Grandpa set up. It was supposed to cover this." A pause. "Oh, that," he said, like she'd brought up an old pizza order. "What do you mean that?" she asked. "You promised it was untouched." "Well, technically, the fund became part of the family assets after Grandpa passed. It was merged during probate. I thought we told you that. You didn't." Another pause. "It's complicated. Kyle needed capital. The beach property required a down payment. It's a long-term investment for all of us." Naomi stood up from her library chair, her voice rising. "You used my college fund for Kyle's beach house?" Her father sighed like she was being unreasonable. "It's not just his. It'll benefit the family." "I am family." "Well," he said, voice cooling, "you've always had that independent streak. You'll figure it out." He hung up. Naomi stood there, dazed, phone still pressed to her ear. Her stomach churned with disbelief, then rage. The tuition portal still glowed red on her laptop screen. She'd worked 3 years as a campus tutor, never missed a single class, never failed a paper. She was weeks from graduation, a job offer lined up at a top consulting firm. And now, all of it, her future, was being casually tossed aside by a man who once promised he'd never let her fall. Later that night, Naomi sat in the dorm's communal kitchen, a cold cup of instant noodles half finished. Across from her, her roommate Maya scrolled silently through her phone. "I could sell my laptop," Naomi muttered. Maya looked up. "That'll get you 500 maybe. How much do you need?" 13,000. Before tomorrow. Maya winced. "Why not call your uncle?" she asked softly. Naomi blinked. "Uncle Darren?" Maya nodded. "Didn't he used to be close with your mom? I remember you said he used to handle Grandpa's estate stuff, right?" Naomi stared at the wall. She hadn't spoken to Uncle Darren since the funeral. Her dad and stepmother had gradually distanced Naomi from her mom's side after the divorce. Still, Darren had been there during those early months. He was the one who'd sat with her during court hearings, who told her stories about her grandfather when she couldn't sleep. She found his number buried in her notes app and texted, "Hi, Uncle Darren. It's Naomi. I know it's been a while, but I need help understanding something about Grandpa's trust fund." The next morning, she sat across from him in his midtown office. The man hadn't aged much. still trim, still wearing cufflinks with silver lions. He read silently through the documents she brought. The last paperwork she had from her grandfather's estate, tucked away in a worn folder with her name scrawled, in cursive on the top. 10 minutes passed. Then Darren looked up, eyebrows raised. Naomi, this is a restricted educational trust. Your grandfather legally locked this to you only. No one, not even your father, should have been able to touch it. Naomi blinked. But he said it merged with the estate. Probate. Darren shook his head. Not possible. Your grandfather was very specific. I helped him draft this. He opened his drawer, pulled out a thin file. Your father never contacted me after the will was read. But I have the original copy here. I think... He trailed off, flipping through the pages. Then he stopped. A slow, cold smile crossed his lips. Well, he said, it looks like your father forged something. Naomi froze. Darren leaned forward. Naomi, I think you've been robbed. The afternoon sun slanted through the blinds in Darren's office, casting striped shadows over the documents spread before them. Naomi sat frozen in her chair, her fingers clenched tightly in her lap, heart thudding with disbelief. Forged? She whispered. Darren gave a slow nod, his lips pressed into a grim line. See here, he said, pointing to two nearly identical lines on a photocopy of the trust document and what he claimed was the authentic original. Your father submitted this version to the probate court. Note the clause about family reassignment for asset equity. It wasn't in the original. Trust. This isn't your grandfather's language. He didn't speak like this. He was a meticulous man, and he had no intention of that money going to anyone but you. Naomi stared, her blood running cold. So you're saying... He altered the legal document after Grandpa died? I'm saying, Darren said quietly, your father committed fraud. Naomi sat back, stunned. Her mind reeled. That trust was her grandfather's last gift, his promise that no matter how the world treated her, she'd always have a chance. And now, because her father thought Kyle's tiki bar and wellness retreat needed more priority, he gutted it from underneath her. I want to go after him, Naomi said suddenly. Her voice was shaky, but there was steel behind it. Can I? Darren folded his hands and regarded her carefully. You can. But you need to understand what this means. Naomi, if we file a fraud claim against your father, this will go public. Your stepmother, Kyle. Your entire family will find out. They'll push back. Hard. I don't care, Naomi said. They already turned their backs on me. Darren paused for a long moment, then gave a solemn nod. All right. Then we do this right. The next week was a flurry of hidden movement. Naomi lived a double life. By day, she showed up to campus pretending nothing was wrong. She wore the same 2 outfits in rotation, rationed her instant meals, and politely dodged questions about whether she was still graduating. By night, she sat across from Darren in his office, or on video calls with a legal assistant named Priya, sorting through court filings and collecting everything. Bank statements, emails, even a voicemail from a year ago where her father joked about reallocating family funds. Darren submitted an emergency injunction with the probate court, attaching both the original trust and the forged copy. Within 2 days, the court froze the trust and summoned Naomi's father for a hearing. The news didn't stay quiet for long. Naomi's phone lit up during her economics lecture. Dad. She didn't answer. Then, stepmom, Kyle. Then finally, the one name she didn't expect. Mom. Naomi stepped out into the hallway and answered. Naomi? Her mother's voice came through, strained but clear. What's going on? Your father called me screaming. Something about a court summons? Naomi exhaled. He stole Grandpa's trust. I have proof. There was a long pause. Then, I always knew he'd try something like this. You did? I didn't have the documents, Naomi. But I knew your grandfather never trusted him after the divorce. That trust was your right. Your father. He always wanted to control things that weren't his. Naomi bit her lip, trying to keep from crying. She hadn't heard her mom sound this sure in years. Do you need me there? Her mother asked. Naomi paused. Yes. The morning of the hearing, Naomi wore her only blazer, a dark navy one she'd borrowed from Maya. Her mother sat beside her outside the courtroom, her hands firm and warm around Naomi's. Then the doors opened. Her father strode in with his, lawyer, confident, smug, pretending this was all a silly misunderstanding. His hair slicked back, watch gleaming, Kyle trailing behind him looking more irritated than worried. When he spotted Naomi, his mouth twitched into a smile, condescending and fake. You didn't need to go this far, he said, as if she were a child throwing a tantrum. We could have handled this privately. I gave you that chance, Naomi said quietly. You lied. You're making this ugly, he muttered, glancing at the court clerk. You think you're going to win? Naomi stood taller. I don't think. I know. The judge was a woman in her 50s, sharp and unsentimental. She read through the filing silently, while both sides sat tensely. When she finally looked up, her expression was unreadable. Ms. Tanaka, she said, addressing Naomi. Do you have the original witness statements from the estate attorney? Darren stood. Yes, Your Honor. We have a notarized affidavit from myself and the trust's original co-executor, confirming this version of the trust is accurate. The altered version was never part of the estate plan. The judge took the document, read silently again, then turned to Naomi's father. Mr. Tanaka, do you have a response to the claim that you forged this clause? Her father's lawyer stood quickly. Your Honor, my client believed, based on his understanding, that the document was amended during a prior family discussion. There is no record of such an amendment, the judge cut in sharply. No court filing, no family meeting minutes, no additional witnesses. Then, she turned to Naomi. You will receive your full educational trust, effective immediately. Naomi's heart skipped. The judge continued. Furthermore, I am referring this matter to the DA's office for further investigation into fraudulent probate submission. Court is adjourned. The gavel struck. Outside the courtroom, her father fumed. You've ruined this family's name, he hissed, eyes wild. Naomi stared at him, finally seeing the man behind the mask. He wasn't the protector she once believed in. He wasn't even the successful businessman he pretended to be. He was a man who robbed his own daughter and expected her to thank him. I didn't ruin anything, Naomi said. You did, and now you're going to pay for it. Her mother appeared at her side, proud. Darren stepped forward with the court, copy in hand. Naomi walked past her father and Kyle, chin high, heart racing, but this time with triumph. She didn't just reclaim her money. She reclaimed her voice. The taste of victory lingered, but it was laced with something bitter. Naomi stood in the quiet of her campus courtyard that night, gazing up at the worn bricks of the economics building. It was nearly midnight. The lamps cast halos on the walkways, and her breath puffed clouds in the chilled spring air. Her tuition had been paid in full by the end of the day. An official email from the bursar confirmed her reinstatement. She was back on track to graduate. But it didn't feel done. Not really. Because earlier that evening, an envelope had been slipped under her dorm door. No return address. Just her name, written in a hurried scrawl she knew far too well. Her father's handwriting. Inside, a check, $25,000, and a note. Let's be smart about this. Drop the charges. No more drama. We'll call it even. Naomi laughed. Out loud. Alone. The sound cracked in the dark. He thought she could be bought. Maya nearly dropped her cup of tea when Naomi showed her the check. He's bribing you? Naomi nodded. He wants me to stop cooperating with the DA. Are you going to cash it? Naomi stared at the check, fingers running along its edge. No, I'm going to keep it. Maya tilted her head. Why? Naomi's eyes hardened. As proof. The next week, Naomi received her subpoena to testify. The district attorney's office had moved fast. Faster than even Darren expected. With the forged clause, Darren's affidavit, and Naomi's own documentation from the financial aid office, the DA had what they needed to launch a full fraud investigation. Her father's lawyer tried to call her. So did her stepmother. When Naomi ignored them, Kyle messaged her on Instagram. Hope you're happy. You killed Dad's business and ruined the family name over some dumb tuition. She stared at the message, then typed, You mean my tuition? The one you stole for your beachfront smoothie empire? Hope the coconuts were worth it. She hit send, blocked him. Court depositions began in early May. Naomi sat with Priya and Darren across from a DA who reminded her of an old war general, stoic, sharp, and allergic to nonsense. She recounted everything, from the moment she found out her tuition failed to process, to the phone call with her father, to the hearing and the envelope under her door. When she handed over the check, the DA raised a single eyebrow. Well, now he's trying to bribe a witness in an active investigation. That's a new file. Naomi's stomach flipped. This wasn't just about the trust anymore. This was criminal. For the first time, she saw her father as he truly was. Not just flawed, not just selfish, dangerous. Meanwhile, news spread. Her story made its way through campus in whispers, group chats, and even Reddit threads. A few classmates approached her cautiously in the dining hall. You're that girl, right? One whispered. The one who exposed her dad. Respect. Naomi nodded, unsure how to feel. Later, one of her professors pulled her aside after class. I heard what you did, she said quietly. That takes courage. When you graduate, let me know if you want a referral. You're exactly the kind of person companies need. Naomi walked out stunned. Her entire life she'd chased approval, her father's especially. But this respect, earned without compromise or silence, it felt real. Still, the fallout wasn't over. The night before her final exam, Naomi's mother called in a panic. Just got a notice, she said breathlessly. From your father's lawyer. He's trying to file a claim to block my name from being involved in any future proceedings. Claims I influenced you illegally. Naomi's chest tightened. That's insane. You didn't even know I was doing this until after I filed. I know. But he's desperate. He's unraveling. Naomi went quiet, staring at her textbook. Then maybe it's time we stop reacting and start planning. She opened a new browser tab, pulled up the name of the family law firm Darren once mentioned, one that specialized in probate abuse and financial exploitation. She wasn't just going to help the DA convict her father. She was going to sue. Personally. For emotional damages, academic disruption, breach of fiduciary trust. Her mother was silent for a moment. Then, "You sure about this?" Naomi looked out the window. I'm not the same girl he thought he could control with a check. 2 weeks later, Naomi walked the graduation stage to thunderous applause. She wore a crimson sash. Her mom cried from the second row. Maya shouted her name. Darren stood near the back, arms folded, the ghost of a proud smile on his face. Naomi's father wasn't there. He was at home, under investigation, with pending criminal charges for forgery and bribery. And soon, he'd face her again. But this time, not as a daughter, as a plaintiff. Naomi sat across from her new attorney, Cassandra Royce, a no-nonsense woman in her 40s who'd made headlines for taking down corrupt financial guardianships and predatory family estate manipulators. Her suit was charcoal gray, her voice calm but piercing. "This case," Cassandra said, scanning the thick file in front of her, "is more than personal. It's precedent-setting. Your father's actions, fraud, misappropriation of trust assets, and now bribery, are criminal. But your civil case?" She looked up. "That's going to change everything." Naomi nodded, her spine straight. "I want to file for everything he thought I was too scared to demand." "Good," Cassandra said, "because we're not just suing for the misuse of your trust. We're including emotional distress, education disruption, and reputational harm. And we're filing under your full name." Naomi blinked. "You mean, this case is going to be public, Naomi? Press, blogs, maybe even TV. Are you ready for that?" Naomi swallowed. Her heart fluttered, but not with fear. With fire. Yes. The civil suit landed on her father's doorstep 2 weeks later, and that's when the real unraveling began. Within days, Naomi's inbox exploded. Old classmates, reporters, even family she hadn't spoken to in years. Her cousin Evelyn from I, her mom's side, messaged her on Facebook. "I always knew something was off. He cut me off from Grandpa after the funeral. I'm with you. Say the word and I'll give a statement." Even Kyle's ex-girlfriend Dina reached out. "He told me your dad moved your trust to a family slush fund. I thought it sounded shady. If you need me to say that on record, I will." Naomi forwarded it all to Cassandra. Evidence piled up like ash after a fire. The headlines came next. Daughter sues. Father for stealing college trust to fund son's beach house. Forged trust exposed. Former exec faces criminal charges after daughter's legal strike. Family fraud or investment misunderstanding. Naomi Tanaka speaks out. She kept her interviews honest, measured, and powerful. No tears. No theatrics. Just truth. "I trusted my father," she said during her segment on a popular streaming docuseries. "He looked me in the eyes and told me my future was safe. Then he used that money to fund someone else's dream while telling me I was being ungrateful. This isn't just about a bank account. It's about betrayal." The clip went viral. The comments poured in. "She's the definition of resilient. This generation isn't staying silent anymore. Her dad deserves every consequence. Coming." Naomi felt the world shift under her feet. Not collapse, but rise. She wasn't just surviving the betrayal. She was rebuilding something stronger on its ruins. But not everyone took it well. Her father's second wife, Yvette, began posting veiled jabs on social media. Funny how some people destroy their families for 15 minutes of fame. Naomi ignored it, until Kyle went live on Instagram. Look, yeah, maybe Dad should have handled things better, he said, lounging in a bright oceanfront chair. But Naomi always thought she was better than us. I mean, she was Grandpa's favorite. He basically groomed her to be some saint. Naomi sat frozen, watching. The comments under the live stream were mixed, but many defended her. Still, Kyle's words burrowed. She didn't want this to be about favoritism or bitterness. She wanted it to be about justice. So she took a breath and called Evelyn. The deposition phase of the civil case was brutal. Naomi had to sit through hours of testimony, watching her father deny, deflect, dodge. He accused her of emotional instability, claimed she was easily influenced by Darren and her mother. But Cassandra was ready. She played the voicemail of him saying, "It's a long-term investment for the family." She showed the notarized trust copy. Then, like a nail in the coffin, she introduced the sworn statement from Evelyn. Naomi's grandfather made it clear before he passed that fund was Naomi's. He even told me to make sure she never let anyone take it from her. I think he knew what her father was capable of. Naomi watched as her father's face tightened. He didn't look smug anymore. He looked cornered. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. Naomi stepped down the steps, flanked by Cassandra and her mother. The press lights flashed. "Naomi, any regrets going public with this?" She looked into the cameras. "No. My only regret is that I waited this long to speak up." Back in her tiny apartment, Naomi sat at her desk. Letters and emails scattered everywhere. College students writing to thank her. A legal podcast asking to interview her. A scholarship foundation offering to name a fund after her. Her eyes blurred as she read one message in particular. "I'm a junior in college. My stepdad stole from me too. But you gave me the courage to stand up to him. Thank you for reminding me I'm not alone." Naomi wiped her eyes. This wasn't just her story anymore. It was a movement, but the final verdict hadn't come yet. The lawsuit still loomed. Her father still had tricks up his sleeve. And Naomi? She had more fight left. The civil trial began on the first Monday of July. Naomi stood outside the courthouse in a tailored navy suit, the morning sun glinting off her gold necklace, one of the few gifts left from her grandfather that hadn't been sold or repurposed. Her hands were steady. Her mind sharp. Inside the courtroom, the tension cut deeper than any cross-examination. Her father sat at the defense table, flanked by two high-powered attorneys, both polished and arrogant. He wore a charcoal suit and that same expensive watch from last year's Christmas. Naomi remembered the box it came in. She remembered her stepmother's fake excitement, and she remembered how, that same night, he told Naomi he was proud of her independence, as a way to justify not helping with her rent. Cassandra leaned over and whispered, "No matter what they say today, don't flinch. Let them act like this is personal. We're here for facts." Naomi nodded, but inside her, the storm was already rolling. The defense's opening was as slippery as expected. "Ms. Tanaka," the defense lawyer said, pacing before the jury, "is an ambitious young woman with a very selective memory. Her father, Mr. Robert Tanaka, was not trying to steal from her. He was trying to protect a family legacy. The investment he made was intended to multiply the value of the family's assets. Naomi sat motionless as the jury listened. Then, the lawyer smiled faintly and added, "And if Ms. Tanaka was so concerned about her tuition, perhaps she could have reached out earlier, rather than wait until things unraveled." Naomi's nails dug into her palm. But Cassandra stood and delivered the counterstrike. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said smoothly, "this isn't a story of misunderstanding. It's a story of entitlement, where a father used forged documents to override his deceased father-in-law's final wishes and funnel an educational trust into a failed beach house venture for his preferred child. This isn't a family squabble. It's fraud. And the evidence is overwhelming." Then came the exhibits. Screenshots of emails, transaction history, the fake amendment, the forensic handwriting analysis, the message Kyle sent Naomi admitting her father had moved things around. Every lie cracked under the weight of the truth. Naomi took the stand on day 2. Her heart thumped in her chest as she was sworn in. She met her father's eyes only once. He looked at her like a stranger. She told her story, from the very beginning, about the trust her grandfather created and how much it meant to her, about the financial aid warnings, the shock, the call with her father. The check slid under her door like hush money. She recounted the humiliation, having to borrow clothes for interviews, almost losing her graduation, the way her father gaslit her, as if it were her fault for not being flexible. When Cassandra asked her, "What would you say is the most lasting damage done to you by all this?" Naomi paused. Then she answered softly, "He made me doubt my worth. He made me feel like asking for what was promised to me made me selfish. And I carried that shame until I found the truth. That's what I want this trial to prove. That silence isn't strength. Truth is." A hush settled over the room. Even the judge watched her a moment longer before nodding to continue. During recess, Naomi stepped outside into the breeze. She caught a glimpse of Kyle sitting on a bench nearby, earbuds in, jaw tight. He didn't look smug anymore, just small. She hesitated, then walked toward him. He saw her, yanked out one earbud. "What?" Naomi folded her arms. "Do you even realize what he did to me? To you?" He scoffed. "He tried to build something for both of us. You just made it a courtroom drama. He forged Grandpa's signature. That wasn't building. That was theft." Kyle looked away, jaw clenched. "You always wanted to be the hero." Naomi exhaled through her nose. "No, I wanted a future. You just wanted a shortcut." She turned and walked back inside. On the final day of testimony, her father took the stand. He looked polished, composed. But Naomi had seen behind that mask. He talked about family decisions, poor communication, mutual sacrifice. Cassandra stood, slowly flipping through a binder. "Mr. Tanaka," she said, "do you remember the voicemail you left your daughter? The one where you said she had that independent streak and you were sure she'd figure it out?" He smiled faintly. "Yes, I meant it as encouragement." She pressed a button. The audio played over the courtroom speakers. "You've always had that independent streak. You'll figure it out." Then she played the next one. The one he didn't. "No was saved. She'll get over it. Once she hits a wall, she'll come crawling back, and will act like nothing happened." The courtroom held its breath. Naomi's father turned pale. Cassandra looked at the jury. Does this sound like a man who respected his daughter's independence or planned to manipulate it? The silence was louder than any gavel. Outside, as the jury began deliberations, Naomi stood on the courthouse steps. Her mother joined her. "Win or lose," she said quietly, "you already changed everything." Naomi nodded. "But I'm not done." She looked out toward the skyline. Her father had money, influence, a polished image, but she had something sharper now, the truth, and an army of people watching. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about what came next. It was nearly 4 p.m. when the courtroom doors creaked open and the jury returned. Naomi stood. Her fingers were clasped so tightly around the hem of her blazer they'd gone numb. Across the room, her father straightened in his seat, adjusting his cufflinks like he was about to walk into a photo op instead of a reckoning. The foreperson handed the verdict form to the bailiff. The judge scanned it, her face unreadable. Then she looked up. In the matter of Naomi Tanaka versus Robert Tanaka, on the charge of civil fraud and breach of fiduciary duty regarding the plaintiff's educational trust, this court finds in favor of the plaintiff. A wave of air seemed to rush out of Naomi's lungs. Her knees didn't buckle. Her hands didn't shake. She simply stood there, still, as the moment washed over her. The courtroom murmured. Her mother grasped her arm, teary-eyed. Cassandra gave a rare smile, crisp and razor-sharp. "We did it." But it wasn't over. The judge continued, "Mr. Tanaka is hereby ordered to pay restitution totaling $312,000, reflecting the original trust amount, plus accrued interest, damages for financial disruption, and emotional distress." Her father didn't look at her. For the first time in Naomi's life, he couldn't meet her eyes. The next morning, the headlines roared louder than ever. Daughter wins lawsuit against father who stole her college trust to fund stepsons. Dream, Naomi Tanaka, break silence after landmark civil fraud victory. He told me to crawl back. Naomi Tanaka speaks out on financial abuse in families. She woke to hundreds of notifications, some from verified journalists, others from strangers who'd seen her story and wanted to share their own. One message came from a girl in Nevada. "I'm 18. My mom took my college savings after my dad passed. I thought no one would believe me. But after what you did, I'm going to talk to a lawyer. Thank you." Another from a boy in Atlanta. "Your dad and my dad should have lunch. They'd probably talk about how girls are too emotional to handle. Money. You showed him. You showed them all." Naomi sat at her desk, eyes blurry, heart full. It wasn't about the money anymore. That had been stolen and replaced. This was about the message. That silence wasn't loyalty. That family didn't mean obedience. That truth had teeth, and hers had finally bitten back. But not everything was smooth. A week after the verdict, Naomi's phone buzzed with a new voicemail. It was Kyle. "Congrats, Naomi. You got what you wanted. You humiliated our dad. You made us look like monsters on national news. Hope it was worth it." Then, another. "FYI, the beach house deal collapsed. Dad's name is all over Google now. No one wants to work with us. Hope you're proud." She didn't reply. She didn't need to, because the truth had already done its job. Meanwhile, her LinkedIn profile exploded. 4 consulting firms reached out within a week. A nonprofit organization emailed her asking if she'd speak at a virtual summit on financial independence for young women. "And Darren?" He called with a new kind of voice, relieved, proud, and a little in awe. "You fought harder than most adults I've known," he said. Your grandfather would have been proud. He used to say the women in this family have iron in their spine. Naomi smiled. He gave me the iron. Dad just gave me the fire. 2 months later, she stood on the stage at the Women in Justice Summit. Her speech had been quoted, shared, and reposted 1,000 times already. But Naomi didn't care about the clicks. She cared about the silence in the room as she spoke. I thought loyalty meant protecting your family at all costs, but now I know. Real loyalty is protecting your future, even when that means walking away from the people who tried to burn it down. Cameras flashed, but Naomi didn't pose. She stood tall. She walked off stage not as a victim, not as a daughter, avenging a betrayal, but as a woman who rebuilt herself from the ashes of other people's selfishness. And as she walked backstage, someone stepped out from the shadows. It was a woman, late 30s, face pale and nervous. Ms. Tanaka? I just wanted to say, my dad did something similar. I never fought it. I didn't think I could. But after watching you, Naomi reached out, steady. You still can. Because some victories echoed beyond the courtroom. Some revolutions started with a single girl refusing to stay silent. It had been 6 months since the verdict. The court case was over. The media buzz had quieted, and the headlines had slowly faded into the archives of Google search. But Naomi's story, the real one, was far from finished. She had moved out of her campus apartment into a modest but sunlit studio on the east side of town. Her consulting job had started in September, and within weeks, she was already leading internal workshops on ethical finance and trust recovery, a term she coined herself. But beneath her rising career, the damage lingered. She still checked her bank account more than she needed to. She still flinched when an unknown number called, and sometimes, when she was alone, she still heard his voice. You'll figure it out. The lie behind that phrase echoed like a curse she'd finally broken. One October morning, Naomi received a letter. Not an email. A real, handwritten letter, delivered to her office. The handwriting was tight and overly formal. She recognized it instantly, Robert Tanaka. She sat at her desk and stared at it for a long time. Then she opened it. Naomi, I assume you're satisfied. You got your trust fund. You got your headlines. You got the world to believe your version of the truth. I lost. More than money. I lost my name, my friends, my business. But maybe you'll be happy to know you were right. You were smarter than I gave you credit for, and you won. Dad. She read it twice. Then again. There was no apology, no ownership, no remorse. It was ego in disguise, bitterness wrapped in reluctant admiration. She folded it slowly and slipped it into a drawer. That chapter was over, but her story had more pages. That same week, Naomi was invited to give a TEDx talk. The theme, what we inherit and what we refuse to carry. She stood backstage, mic clipped to her lapel, watching the countdown timer. Maya flew in from out of state to watch. Darren was in the front row. Her mother waited in the wings with a soft smile and tissues ready, just in case. Naomi stepped into the spotlight. For years, she began, I thought strength meant staying quiet, not causing problems, not embarrassing your family. I thought speaking up meant betrayal. A pause. But then one day I realized I was the one being betrayed. She told the story, the whole arc. Not just the court case or the money, but The emotional erosion. The subtle manipulation. The way silence had slowly eaten away at her sense of worth, until she couldn't tell where her voice ended and her father's control began. She ended with a simple truth. Some families pass down wealth. Some pass down wounds. I chose to break the cycle. The room stood in ovation before she even stepped off stage. After the talk, Naomi was approached by a tall woman in her early 60s. Gray hair, olive coat, piercing eyes. Your grandfather, the woman said, was my client. I'm Angela Werner, estate consultant. He used to say you were the only one who looked people in the eye when they spoke. Naomi's heart clenched. You knew him? I helped him set up the trust. He asked me to build it strong enough to survive family politics. He'd be proud of you, Naomi. Naomi smiled, her throat tight. Thank you, she said. He saved me, even from the grave. Angela nodded. He did more than that. He gave you a weapon, and you wielded it with grace. Winter came fast that year. Snow dusted her apartment windows, and Naomi spent her evenings writing, journals, speeches, a draft of her book. She called it Inheritance, the Weight We Don't. Talk about. Every page was an offering, a reckoning, a mirror held up to every child who was told they were selfish for asking for what was promised. Publishers took interest almost instantly, and one chilly afternoon her editor called. There's a national morning show that wants to feature your story for their holiday special. They're calling it Family, Forgiveness, and Financial Freedom. Are you willing? Naomi hesitated. She wasn't sure she was ready to talk about forgiveness. Not yet. I'll come on, she said, but only if I can be honest. Always, the editor said. That's what they want. The studio lights were warm. The host was kind. The segment opened with a highlight reel of Naomi's TEDx talk, courtroom footage, and old family photos that Naomi had reluctantly provided. Then came the big question. Naomi, the host asked, leaning forward, do you forgive your father? The camera zoomed in. The audience held its breath. Naomi blinked slowly, then spoke, clearly. No, I don't. Not yet. A ripple moved through the crowd. But I'm learning that forgiveness isn't the finish line. Truth is, and once you get there, forgiveness is no longer something you owe. It's something you get to choose. Applause. Raw. Real. She'd told the world the truth. Now she was living it. Spring arrived with unexpected gentleness. Naomi stood on the balcony of her new home, a townhouse she bought herself, mortgage-free, with the settlement money and her now thriving consulting business. Morning light poured through the trees, and for the first time in years she felt calm. Not just relief, not just closure. Calm. A peace that couldn't be shaken by an incoming call, a delayed deposit, or a father's disappointed sigh. Her phone vibrated against the railing. Unknown number. She didn't recognize it, but something inside her said, "This is the final call." She answered. A voice cleared its throat. "Naomi, it's Robert." She didn't speak. She let the silence stretch. "I saw your book came out. And the interviews," he said slowly. "I read it." Naomi waited. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he added quickly. "And I know I can't undo what I did. I thought I was securing something bigger, that I was protecting the family." Naomi finally spoke. Her voice was steady, You weren't protecting the family. You were protecting control. And when you lost it, you blamed me for holding you accountable." He didn't argue. She heard his breath catch slightly. "I'm leaving the city," he said. "I sold the last of the property. Kyle moved to Arizona. We're not speaking." Naomi didn't respond. That wasn't her burden to carry anymore. "I'm sorry," he said at last. Not forced, not loud, just barely audible. "I was wrong." She looked out at the skyline. Her city. Her future. Built by her hands, not stolen from someone else's. "I accept your apology," she said quietly. "But I'm still not coming back." She hung up, not in anger. In finality, 2 weeks later, Naomi stood in front of a lecture hall at her old university, giving a guest seminar on trust, power, and the silence that breaks us. The room was packed. Students sat cross-legged in the aisles. She told her story. Not the sensational version from tabloids, but the real one. The one with fear, doubt. The nights she cried silently on the dorm bathroom floor, wondering if she was crazy for fighting her own blood. And then she held up a photo. Her grandfather, holding a tiny Naomi on his shoulders, both grinning at a science fair trophy she barely remembered winning. "This man believed I was worth investing in," she said, "and I've spent every day since proving him right." Applause rose like a wave, not because she was famous, but because she was free. The book hit bestseller lists within the month. Naomi appeared on panels, radio shows, and finance podcasts. A scholarship was launched in her name, the Tanaka Grant, for financial recovery and academic resilience, supporting students who had experienced trust violations or parental exploitation. One recipient emailed her, "Your story saved me from believing I deserved to suffer. I'm majoring in law next year. Maybe someday I'll stand where you stood." Naomi printed the email and pinned it to her wall, not for vanity, for memory, for meaning. On her 30th birthday, Naomi visited the cemetery where her grandfather rested. She brought a bouquet of sunflowers, his favorite, sat beside the headstone, spoke softly. "I won, Grandpa. Not just in court, in life." She smiled, blinking back tears. "And I kept my promise. I didn't let them break me." She stood, brushed a leaf from the marble, and as she walked away, the wind stirred the grass behind her, gentle and warm, a blessing, a goodbye. She was no one's pawn now, no one's backup plan, no longer the quiet girl in the corner who waited for fairness to find her. She was the storm. She was the voice, and she had rewritten the story of her life, from betrayal to legacy.